You've finished video number 1, and now you're ready for video number 2. So you've divided decimals by whole numbers. Now we're going to divide decimals by decimals. Title the top of your spiral, and let's get started. Get some graph paper so that you can line it up. So first, let's write 48 hundredths divided by 1 and 2 tenths. Once you've got that written down, we can keep going. So what's important is that we want to divide like their whole numbers like we just did with the last video. But to do that, I've got to make 1 and 2 tenths a whole number by moving the decimal point. And then whatever I do to 1 and 2 tenths, I've got to do to 48 hundredths. So let me just explain a little more. I want to make this into a whole number. So I'm going to move the decimal point 1 time. So now I'm dividing by 12. And I'm going to move the decimal 1 time here. So now I've got 4 and 8 tenths divided by 12. Well, what's 48 divided by 12? That gives me 4. 4 times 12 is 48. Subtract 0. Now remember, it's important to write the quotient in the correct place value spots. So that 4 goes above the 8, since I did 48 divided by 12. Then, just like we've done before, I'm going to move that decimal point straight up. My answer is 4 tenths. Now, my last step. I think you know what's coming. I need to check to make sure my answer is reasonable, and I'm going to check that with multiplication. So I want you to check with multiplication, pause the video, press play when you're ready. Alright, when you check your answer, you can multiply either way, whichever number's on top. So I'm going to use this way over here on the right. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. I move the decimal 2 places. Oh, 48 hundredths. 48 hundredths. Check. My answer is definitely reasonable. Alright, let's keep going. Alright, first, let's write this down. I have 42 and 3 tenths divided by 12 hundredths. Let's review. I'm going to turn this into a whole number by moving that decimal 2 places. I'm going to do the same thing over here. What do you think is going to go in this empty spot? You got it, a 0. Alright, so let's begin. 42 divided by 12, the closest I can get, it's 3. 3 times 12 is 36. When I subtract 42 minus 36, it gives me 6. I bring down the 3. Now I have to remember my facts of 12. 12 times 5 is 60. I subtract. I bring down a 0. 30 divided by 12. Well, I know that 2 times 12 is 24. I subtract and I get 6. Now, here's an important note, is that we're not going to have remainders with decimals. We're going to keep dividing by adding zeros. If I add another 0 and bring it down, 60 divided by 12 is 5. I'm going to move that decimal point straight up. So my answer is 352 and 5 tenths. Notice, it's really important that I write my quotient in the right place value spots. If this would have been shifted over, that decimal would have been in the wrong spot. So, look again what we did. When we ended up with 6, instead of writing a remainder, I added a 0 and kept going, and now I have a number after the decimal point. And the one that we just did, I didn't have to keep going, it ended. All right, so you know what I want to do next. I want to check to see if this is the right answer with multiplication. So check with multiplication, pause the video, press play when you're ready to check. All right, I've gotten started. We're multiplying 352 and 5/10 times 12 hundredths to see if that will get me 42 and 3/10. This is checking my answer for reasonableness. So 2 times 2, 4, plus 1 is 5, 10, 7. Check to see if your work looks like mine. Now multiplying by 1. 1 times 5 is 5, 2, 5, 3, 10, 3, 7, and 5 gives me 12, 4. I have 3 spots to move that decimal point. 42 and 3/10. These extra zeros are not, that doesn't affect my answer. 42 and 3/10. We did it right. Awesome. Pause the video, press play when you're ready for number 3. All right, before we move to number 3, remember, it's important that you're taking good notes. You get to use these notes on your quiz, and they're good to help you for upcoming homework and for tomorrow's activity. All right, get started by writing 8 and 5/10 divided by 3 and 5/10. We'll worry about this rounding the quotient to the nearest hundredth in a little bit. So let's get it written down and let's get started. How many times do I need to move the decimal point to make 35 a whole number? I hope you said once. So 85 divided by 35. Off to the side on your paper, we need to start doing some multiplication to figure this out. So 35 times 2, that gives me 70. 35 times 3, 105. So what's the closest I can get to 85? That would be 2 times 35 is 70. Subtract. All right, I've got 15. Now remember, we're not going to have any remainders. So I need to add a 0, and I need to keep going. Now I have 150. So what should I multiply 35 by? Maybe times 5? $15, $16, $17. Oh, that's too much. So maybe I'll try times 4. Make sure you're writing all of this down. You should be working this out with me. Ooh, 140 is a lot closer. So closest I can get to 150 is 140. Subtract, and I get 10. Well, remember, we're not going to have any remainders, so let's put down another 0. Now I'm dividing by 100. So 35. What's the closest I can get to 100? Oh, 3 is too much. So I'm going to have to do 2. And I'm going to make this go out a little further. 2 times 35 is 70. Subtract, and I have 30. Let's add another 0 and keep going. Now, how far are we going to have to go? Whew, my decimal point is right here after the 2. So far I've gone to the hundredths place. Let's go another place, and then we'll talk a little more. All right, I got to get close to 300. So 5 times 35 is 175. Let's try 8. Make sure you're writing this down. 8 times 3 is 24. plus 4, 28. So 280, that's pretty close. Let's just check with 35 times 9. 45, 27 plus 4 is 31. Too much. So 35 times 8 is 280. Subtract, and we have 20. Still not done. All right, remember, let's go back to what these instructions ask. Round the quotient to the nearest hundredth. We've gone tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Am I able now to round to the nearest hundredth? I am. I have to go one more place past the hundredths so I can round. What does that 8 tell me to round that to? Pause and think about it. All right, I hope you've been thinking about it. So, I didn't keep going because it told me that I could round to the nearest hundredth place. I went to the thousandth place, so I can now round to the hundredth place. The 8 is going to tell me to round that 2 up. So the answer to this is 2 and 43 hundredths. Again, you see how important it is to write our quotient in the correct place value spots. Now, remember the last thing is I want to check for reasonableness. Well, I rounded my answer, so is it going to work out exactly? No. But I can still multiply, and it should be close to the answer. 2 and 43 hundredths times 3 and 5 tenths. Work it out. Press play when you're ready to check. All right. Sorry about the bell. Take a look at what you got. 8 and 505 thousandths. That's really close to our answer. So we know that this is our answer. Of course, it wasn't going to be exact because we rounded our quotient. But this is definitely a reasonable answer. Check. Pause the video and press play when you're ready to move on. All right, number 4 is a word problem. There are 4.5 servings in a 49.5 ounce bottle of sauce. How many ounces are in each serving? All right, get the problem written down and get started. Press play whenever you're ready to check your work. All right, let's check over your work. First, did you move the decimal 1 place to the right? Then 1 times 45 is 45. When I subtract, I get 4, and I bring down a 5. So, did you get 11 for your answer? I hope so. If not, check over your work and look at my work. Now, the next thing we do is check to make sure this is reasonable. So, we need to see if 4 and 5 tenths times 11 equals 49 and 5 tenths. All right, work out your multiplication. All right, when you multiplied, did it work out? It did for me. So my answer is definitely reasonable. Look over your work, pause the video if you need to, and then press play when you're ready to move on. All right, we need to check to see how you did. Work out numbers 1, 2, and 3 in your spiral and take it to your teacher to be checked. Good luck!